Welcome to This Explainer. Right now, as we speak, there is a catastrophic conflict literally tearing apart a nation of 50 million people. It's a crisis fueled by greed, deep historical grievances, and international shadow politics, yet somehow it barely even registers on our daily news feeds. So today, we're going to dive right into the facts, the data, and the history to map out exactly what is happening in Sudan, why it matters to the rest of the world, and most importantly, the profound, devastating human cost being paid by innocent civilians. We're starting with a really chilling analysis from Yale University. When researchers looked at satellite imagery of Al-Fashir in late 2023, they didn't just see the typical structural damage of war. They saw this: mounds of bodies. This isn't just abstract geopolitics. This is systemic, brutal violence where homes are literally being checked door to door to target indigenous non-Arab tribes. It's a very stark reminder that behind every single data point we talk about in this explainer, there is a profound, real-world human tragedy unfolding on the ground. 10 million. I want you to really think about that number. That is 10 million innocent civilians who have been forced to flee their homes just to survive. Try and put yourself in the shoes of a Sudanese family for just a second. A few months ago, you were living a totally normal life, right? Going to work, sending your kids to school, and today, your neighborhood is an active war zone. You've packed whatever you can physically carry, you're walking for days to escape artillery fire, and you're trading the safety of your home for the brutal trauma of a crowded, wildly under-resourced displacement camp. It is the complete unraveling of a society. And the death toll is just heartbreaking. 150,000 lives lost. The UN is calling this the world's largest humanitarian crisis, and for a very good reason. The entire infrastructure of the country, we're talking hospitals, schools, local markets, has just been absolutely decimated. For the people trapped inside besieged cities, it's a desperate daily struggle simply to find food and safety, especially with entire farming seasons completely lost to the violence. So at the core of all this bloodshed, it's basically a massive power struggle between two former allies who originally overthrew a dictator but are now fighting each other for ultimate control. On one side, you have General Abdel Fattah al-Burhan, who commands the Sudanese army. And on the other, there's General Mohammed Hamdan Dagalo, leading the paramilitary Rapid Support Forces, or the RSF. Back in 2019, these two actually worked together to oust a 30-year dictatorship, promising everyone a transition to democracy. But as you can guess, neither was willing to let go of their power, their wealth, or their influence. And in April 2023, that tension violently exploded into the civil war we're witnessing today. Now, you might be wondering, how on earth are these factions paying for such a massive, drawn-out war? Well, the answer is literally right beneath their feet. Sudan is actually the third largest gold producer in all of Africa, pulling over 60,000 kilograms of gold from the earth every single year. But here's the kicker. 90% of it is legally smuggled out of the country. These vast resources are essentially hijacked by warlords to buy advanced weaponry. So the country's own natural wealth is quite literally being weaponized against its own citizens. And the scale of the corruption here is just staggering. To put it into perspective, Sudan produces all this gold, tons of it. Yet even before the war started, the average citizen was barely surviving on an income of just $750 a year. Let that sink in. Warlords are trading literal tons of wealth, all while the population faces 17 straight years of negative GDP growth. It's a textbook example of systemic corruption, the riches of a nation hoarded by a military elite, leaving the everyday civilians completely destitute and starving. Part 1. Echoes of a Dark Past, State-Sponsored Ethnic Conflict. Okay, to really grasp the gravity of today's violence, we need to take a look back. Because what we are witnessing right now is essentially a tragic rhyming of history. Back in 2003, the Darfur region experienced a horrific genocide carried out by the government against non-Arab tribes. Fast forward a bit, and those same government militias were rebranded in 2013 as the RSF. Yes, the exact same paramilitary group fighting the army right now. So while the actors might have changed their titles and shifted their alliances, the foundational violence and the ruthless methods used to crush civilian life, they remain eerily, terrifyingly identical. Those original militias were actually built on the foundation of the Janjaweed, a name that translates roughly to horse-riding devils. They were infamous for their absolute brutality in the early 2000s, which led to the deaths of roughly 300,000 people. General Dagalo, the current head of the RSF, was heavily associated with this very militia. So, when you look at how the RSF operates today, you're looking at the direct descendants of the Janjaweed using the exact same terrifying tactics of burning down villages and causing massive civilian casualties. It is absolutely crucial to understand that this is not a religious war. Almost everyone involved on both sides is Sunni Muslim. No, this is highly targeted, state-sponsored ethnic hatred. The Fur, the Zaghawa, the Berdi, the Masalit, and the Nuba tribes are being systematically hunted down purely for ethnic dominance. The clear goal of these militias is to radically alter the demographic makeup of the entire Darfur region, forcing out these indigenous African tribes so they can assert total, unchallenged control over the land and its resources. And Human Rights Watch is actively sounding the alarm on this. When a highly respected organization like HRW explicitly states that a military force intends to end a community, they are describing genocide, period. The horrific events unfolding in cities like El Janina, where over 1,000 people were slaughtered in a matter of months, that shows us this isn't just accidental crossfire from a civil war. It is a calculated, state-sponsored campaign of ethnic cleansing. So, with all of this massive internal chaos, we really have to ask the elephant in the room question. Why are high-tech weapons from all over the globe suddenly showing up on a Sudanese battlefield? Why are foreign powers quietly fueling this fire? Honestly, it all comes down to geography and leverage. Sudan is this critical bridge connecting Africa and the Middle East. It boasts an extensive coastline along the Red Sea, which is literally one of the most vital shipping lanes on the entire planet. Throw in the massive gold mines and major oil pipelines, and you can see the picture. Whoever controls Sudan has immense leverage over regional politics and global trade. Any instability there is a direct threat to international trade routes and global security, which makes it an absolute magnet for foreign powers who want to secure their own strategic interests. According to intelligence reports and Amnesty International, this whole situation has essentially morphed into a massive global proxy war. You have countries like Iran, Egypt, and Saudi Arabia reportedly backing the Sudanese army with drones and missiles. And on the flip side, the RSF is allegedly getting their hands on sophisticated drones from the UAE and missiles from Russia's Wagner Group. So while these nations might be publicly calling for peace on the world stage, the actual weapons showing up on the ground tell a totally different story. It's foreign interests basically throwing gasoline onto a raging fire. Part 2. A Forgotten War, the Urgent Need for Humanity. As peace talks continually fail and generals outright refuse ceasefires, we have to zoom out and look at the real people left behind. The simple truth is that the international community is catastrophically failing Sudan right now. The UN stated they desperately need $4.2 billion to manage this crisis in 2025. But look at what they've actually received, just $1.45 billion. That is a fatal shortfall. Aid convoys are actively being looted, and the basic funds necessary to provide clean water, medicine, and food to refugees just simply aren't there. The global community is severely, almost unbelievably lagging in its response to what is arguably the most critical humanitarian emergency on Earth right now. 30 million people. That is literally 60% of Sudan's entire population in urgent need of aid just to survive starvation and disease. Preventable illnesses, things like cholera, dengue fever, and malaria, are just running rampant through the destroyed infrastructure, while the World Food Program is warning of a historic hunger crisis. We are talking about families, children, and the elderly caught directly in the crossfire of warlords. They are paying the ultimate price for a war they absolutely never asked for. Spreading global awareness is truly the very first step toward demanding an end to this horrific human tragedy. Right now, Sudan's story is being defined by the sheer greed of a few and the unimaginable suffering of millions. Silence and ignorance, they only empower the warlords and the shadow actors funding them. So the question we have to leave you with is this. Will we just sit by and watch another atrocity unfold in real time? Or will we raise our voices to ensure this forgotten war is finally remembered and resolved? Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer, and I'll catch you in the next one.